Hey, what's up, guys? Robert Rule of 2 Review here, and today, will we or will we not see The Last of Us 2? So this was a pretty curious piece of news that came out yesterday. Apparently, according to somebody who works for Naughty Dog, and I'll get that man's name in a minute, it sounds as if the Last of Us 2 is officially been stated as not in development quite yet. Something that is apparently being considered or in the brainstorming stage. Now, this kind of conflicts with some of my previous theories and theories that a lot of people had. Even IGN, which is where I first found this story, even confirmed this as well, where I thought it was almost going to be for sure that the other game that Naughty Dog's other studio was working on was going to be probably a sequel to The Last of Us, or even something within that universe, something of the spin-off nature, because that's very common and popular nowadays. My theory kind of went along the lines of the fact that we know it was recently confirmed that Left Behind, the DLC, the single-player DLC for The Last of Us, which is coming out now this coming Friday, basically Valentine's Day, that was the last and only single-player DLC that was going to be released for the game. And since we knew that that was going to be the last story element to add to the story of this first game, I thought that for sure that the other game that they were going to be making was The Last of Us 2. And again, the Naughty Dog is unique in the sense that they operate as a two-team studio, and kind of unique because I know that Retro Studios is another studio that does the same thing. With Naughty Dog, they had one team, of course, working on whatever this next Uncharted game is going to be, which is obviously going to be 4, although they have yet to call it that. They've just called it Uncharted. And I thought for sure, the other game was going to be The Last of Us 2, or the spin-off game like I had mentioned. If you go to the link I'll post below that connects to the IGN article talking about this, he mentions that there were even previous rumors that seemed fairly substantiated stating that it was more than likely possible that the other game they were working on was already The Last of Us 2. However, now let me get this guy's name. Neil Druckmann, who is, it doesn't say, he's the writer and creative director of the original game of The Last of Us. And he basically said that they're kind of in the brainstorming stage. It's interesting to hear the way that he put it. I'm not going to read the quotes because there's quite a few of them here and they're kind of long. Again, you'll be able to click the link below if you want to kind of follow it and read what IGN has posted about it, since they're the ones who got the quotes, of course. But he basically said, okay, so there's a lot of different factors going into this news and apparently the decisions being made at Naughty Dog about this. That second team, the team not working on the next Uncharted, is basically just now wrapping up Left Behind, or probably even has already done so since the game comes out in just a few days' time. So they're done with that. They've been talking about what they want to do next. And it's also kind of exciting. The things they're talking about are basically The Last of Us 2 or a brand new IP. That's kind of what it seems to be boiling down to at this point. And both prospects for me and for most people I would think are really exciting. I won't sit here and gush, but as I had said on my top 10 games of 2013 video and a few times since, The Last of Us was my favorite game of the year last year and could have been potentially my favorite game of the entire generation. I mean, and that's saying something because there were a lot of great games last gen, but it was that good. So the prospect of the DLC has been really exciting, and the idea of a sequel has been really exciting. Now, my feelings on that go a little bit deeper, and again, I've touched on this before, but I'll kind of reiterate my point. The way The Last of Us ended, and I will not spoil it here, even though you've probably played it, but I'm not going to spoil it anyway. But the way it ended, if I can talk about it cleverly without spoiling it, is I kind of was left feeling, okay, no, you're meant to be left feeling, I think, as if there's more to the story to be told. It certainly ends on a very specific moment, a character and an acting moment from one of the people involved in this last scene that seems to lend to there's more to happen. The story is definitely not over. There's so much more that the characters involved are going to continue to go through, whether or not we see it play out in a game. And that was great. When I first saw that ending, I was mad for like a day. Not mad in the sense that I didn't love the game, but I was just like, oh my God, like so many things happened that I didn't know how I was feeling about, and then it ended without really any closure and just what the fuck, and I was just kind of that way. That was my general feeling. After a day or two, it sunk in, and I was like, brilliant, loved it. It totally worked for me personally. And of course, the point I'm getting at is it's meant to make you think that, and probably even expect, that they would make another game, that the story's not over. There's more to tell, and that's really, really exciting. Now, my specific feelings on it were, based on the way it did feel, the way that game felt when it ended, for me, I kind of had a theory that even though they didn't really wrap up everything, in this neat little package the way you maybe would want it to, I kind of felt it felt as if that was on purpose by design, to the point of they never maybe envisioned or meant to make another game beyond that story. I kind of got the impression, that they wanted it to end that way and literally be it. Like they would not touch the story again, not counting Left Behind, but in the events following the end of that first game, that they would never really make a sequel. It kind of felt as if they wanted to end it on that fairly ambiguous note. And it was frustrating and altogether brilliant, and I kind of loved it. Now, that was always just a personal theory. Because I loved the game so much, and I know that story could continue, the idea of a sequel is super exciting to me. I would love to have that happen. But I also liked the idea of the theory I had where maybe it was meant to finish that way and just always leave you wondering and guessing. And for all times, you could always discuss the ending of The Last of Us, which would be fairly brilliant. That being said, it seemed more and more likely over the last several months that we were probably going to be looking at a sequel. I mean, the game reviewed fantastically. It sold well and made a lot of money. And it's been winning awards like crazy. It definitely swept most of the Game of the Year awards. Just recently, a few days ago, at the DICE Awards, it won Game of the Year and swept many other categories. I think every single category it was nominated in, which was quite a few, it won. And mostly deservedly so. There's a few other categories I saw where I might not have given it to that. But the overall Game of the Year package, obviously, I would have given it to The Last of Us. So, the point is, it's obviously so popular and did so well, and people enjoyed it so much that they would be silly, from a business standpoint, not to make a sequel. It could become a cash cow. It could do what Uncharted kind of did. And I think that would be great, provided they didn't run into the ground and do the wrong things. And I trust Naughty Dog and the story and characters of The Last of Us enough to believe that if they made one or two more games or what have you, that they would probably all be fantastic. So there's that. Like I said, that's my feelings on how the game ended and my theories and what I did and didn't want when thinking about a sequel to The Last of Us coming up to this news. So here we are. We come to today's news, yesterday's news, technically, that we thought that maybe the rumors were saying Last of Us 2 is going to happen. Left Behind is just a week away. What are they going to do next? And, basically it was just confirmed. I already forgot the guy's name. Neil Druckmann. I almost said David Finkelstein. That's not a name. Neil Druckmann. He was the one who just recently confirmed that, according to this news, it certainly sounds and feels like a confirmation that they're not already working on The Last of Us 2. We know they have this other team, so it's really interesting to note that they used this team to finish up with Left Behind, and now it's all about what they're going to do next. I really like the idea that they're considering a new IP. As much as I said I wanted The Last of Us 2, and I think most people who played it do, I love that they're kind of willing to consider not milking the cash cow and willing to say maybe this is what we know would be a safe bet, but maybe they have other visions and other dreams of different projects and characters and stories and things that they want to do. In a lot of ways, I wouldn't mind seeing them branch out a little bit, branch out in the sense that they focus on these very realistic looking and feeling worlds and characters and these very intricate stories and a very specific gameplay, using this engine that created all four Uncharted games. I'm pretty sure it's the same one on the Vita, Uncharted. And The Last of Us and Left Behind. This engine is great, but maybe they could break out into something else and do something more akin to the older stuff when they were making Crash Bandicoot and things and Jak and Daxter. Honestly, I would love it if they make another kick-ass platforming game. I am a platformer junkie. It's part of the reason Nintendo has remained my favorite company, because they make the best platformers out there, Ubisoft nailed it with Rayman Legends. That might be the best platformer I've ever played. And so stuff like that, 2D, 3D, I love like Ratchet and Clank, the Mario stuff, Banjo-Kazooie, come on, classic, and of course Jak and Daxter and Crash Bandicoot, the old school Crash Bandicoots. There's a lot that they could do, but thinking of a new IP, that really basically says it wouldn't be a Jak and Daxter or a Crash Bandicoot, and that's fine, but for me, as a Naughty Dog fan and a platformer fan, to think of them going to the PlayStation 4 and making one of their amazing quintessential platforming kind of games with a whole new story and characters and just a whole new IP, a new universe, that's very exciting. As much as a sequel to The Last of Us, which is now one of my absolute favorite games of all time, would be amazing, it would be really cool to see them do that, both from a fan-pleasing standpoint as myself, a gamer-pleasing standpoint, and also just creatively. It's good to know that maybe they can break away from these hyper-realistic worlds and characters and, do something a little different, a little more fun, a little more like a game. Because as great as Uncharted and The Last of Us are, sure, they're video games, but they're not games in the sense that we think of other things like Crash Bandicoot and Mario and things like that. And I mean, that's just the kind of gamer I am. Not everyone is that way, but I'm a 33-year-old gamer that loves stuff like The Last of Us and Gears of War and, Battlefield and stuff like that just as much as I love, the Marios, the Zeldas, the Raymans, the Crashes, Sly Cooper, things like that. I love all that stuff. So Naughty Dog is such an amazing developer. There's so much talent behind the scenes at that studio. It's oozing out of that studio. I just couldn't imagine what it would be like to be there and see those guys at work. They're so fantastic. So will we get The Last of Us 2? That's kind of what this whole sort of long-winded story is really about. Are we going to get The Last of Us 2? At the end of the day, if we're really boiling it down to The Last of Us 2 or a brand new IP, I certainly feel like no matter what happens, we all win. I think that those are two fantastic options coming from a studio as fantastically talented as Naughty Dog. And it's now that we know that they're finally working on the PlayStation 4 hardware, it's really exciting to see what they're going to do. Because while I've always said graphics do not matter the most, it's still really nice to have fantastic graphics, and they are just a graphics pumping machine. They just do amazing things. And to have the power and the tech of the PlayStation 4 at their disposal is really exciting. So I can't wait to see what happens with Uncharted. And I can't wait to see what happens with this new game. So I don't know. I guess I'm kind of curious maybe what you guys think. Do you have a preference, knowing that they're considering The Last of Us 2 or a new IP? If you had to pick, what would you pick? Did you like The Last of Us? Did you like it enough to say that The Last of Us 2 is what you want to see? Did you maybe not want to see a sequel to that game and you thought it was perfect just as is? Or is it just a new IP that excites you more? Fresh creativity is something that is sort of dying in the industry. I mean, it's more alive than people want to claim it is, because that's the standard. Oh, Hollywood's running out of ideas and the video game industry is running out of ideas. Not really as true as people want to think it is. But it's a little true. So because it's a little true, I certainly would appreciate, probably just as much as you guys, the idea, again, this is the last I'll touch on this topic, a great studio like Naughty Dog making a new IP on the PlayStation 4. I mean, that is just heaven on earth to all of us, I would think, to me for sure. So I'm not really going to side on one side or the other. I just think it's really interesting that we got this news today. I believe in whatever it is they're making and whatever they're doing. There's no doubt that it's going to be good, because that's all they do is make amazing stuff. So Naughty Dog, thanks for all you do. Last of Us 2 or a new IP, it doesn't matter. We're all going to love it. So I hope you make whatever it is you feel like you want to make. Alrighty, guys, that's all on the fantastic Last of Us franchise for today. So, as always, if you like what I'm doing, please feel free to subscribe, like, and share the video and your thoughts. And thanks as always for tuning in. I'll catch you next time.